Welcome to Average Arcader. I'm your host, Chuck, and today it's time for another episode of Cost to the Boss, where we calculate how big organizations and factions in video games are and how much it costs them to operate. Today, we're going to start our coverage of Fallout 4. Now, Fallout 4 is an amazing game. It takes place in Boston, 200 years after a great war between America and China has destroyed all of civilization. The game is huge, with hundreds of locations to go to, dozens of mutated creatures to fight, and a lot of different character factions or groups to interact with or go up against. In fact, there are 4 main factions with several smaller factions scattered throughout the game. So it's going to take a while to cover everything. We're going to start with one of the smaller factions called the Compound, which is located at a settlement called Covenant. Now, for anyone who's playing through the game and has not played the quest Human Era yet, where you discover the Compound, I would suggest that you not watch yet, because I do plan on spoiling that quest later on. I'm not going to go through the whole entire quest step by step, but I will be spoiling the ending, so you've been warned. Now, when you first get to Covenant, it doesn't look like a dangerous place. In fact, it probably looks like a safe haven to you. There's a concrete and barbed wire fence going around the whole entire thing. Once you get inside, all the houses look well kept. The beds are clean and safe for you to sleep on. There's a general goods store and a doctor so that you can buy supplies and get medical attention. And everybody is super friendly. But with a little bit of detective work, you can discover that this place is actually a front for a very dangerous group called the Compound. Now, the Compound claims that their goal is to take down the main enemy faction of the game, the Institute. The Institute is a group of scientists who kidnap people and replace them with synths. Synths are androids that are physically identical to humans. The Compound claims that they're going to come up with a way to detect these synths so that they can find all of them and destroy them all, thus stopping the Institute. But the problem is, they're not doing this. They're not even coming close to doing this, and they know that. To show you what I mean, let's take a look at what happens when you first discover Covenant. So before you can enter into Covenant, you have to take this test called the Safe Test, where you're asked a series of questions.
So let's begin. There ain't no wrong answers. You are approached by a frenzied scientist who yells, "I'm going to put my quantum harmonizer in your photonic resonation chamber." What's your response?
I wouldn't worry. If he did that, it'd cause parabolic destabilization of the fission singularity.
Yeah. Next.
Now, this test is what they use to decide whether or not you are a synth or not. I'll let their psycho-crazy leader break down how it's supposed to work.
Living synth is indistinguishable from a human by any medical test yet devised. But it turns out psychology can detect a difference. Enter the Safe Test. The test is in its infancy, but through sacrifice and perseverance, our success rate is improving.
And the safe test works?
Oh, yes. Autopsies confirm the test is getting more accurate. There's something in the questions which provokes a response from synth, but the exact trigger is elusive.
So if they give you this test and you fail it, they believe that you're a synth. What's this mean for you? Well, it means you're probably going to die. If you remember, she said that autopsies were showing that they're getting more accurate. This is because the only way to know for sure if someone's a synth is to cut open their head and see if there's a giant chip in it, thus having to kill them in order to confirm if they're right or not. So seeing that people's lives are at risk when they take this test, I bet it's pretty accurate, right?
The margin of error is admittedly high, 4 or 5 false positives per synth. but one day we hope to get it to 1 or 2 false positives.
4 or 5 false positives per synth? That would mean for every synth they find, they have to take down 5 people. Do that 10 times, that's 10 synths and 50 innocent people. The test obviously doesn't work. It's no different than them just walking up to random people and guessing. So if the test doesn't work, what is the real purpose of everything they're doing here? Well, this is the real reason. This is Covenant's general goods store, and everything you see here came from the people the compound has taken out while so-called looking for synths. They take anything of value and sell it here, thus allowing them to pay for their armed guard and supply food for everyone that's here. This is exactly what raiders do. Raiders are another one of the game's main enemies. All they do is attack people to steal their stuff or force them to supply them with food and water. The people at Covenant are doing the exact same thing, only they're doing it under the guise that they're trying to find synths. So now that we have an understanding of what's going on here, how much does it cost for all this to run? Now this was tricky. First, I had to come up with how many people were working in both the hidden compound and in Covenant itself. I came up with about 25 people, 13 of them being armed guards. So from what I can put together, everybody, including the armed guards, were getting their food and water supplied to them as payment, with the armed guards also receiving bottle caps, which is the in-game equivalent of money. Let's count the food and water costs first. The average human needs around 2,500 calories a day in order to maintain a healthy weight. And since everyone in Covenant and the compound all looked healthy, we're going to assume that they were getting what they needed in food every day. So since there's 25 people there total, that would bring the daily intake of calories up to 62,500 calories a day. That's 437,000 calories a week. That's around 125 pounds worth of food. But what about the water cost? Well, the average person needs around 2 liters of water a day. So after we adjust for 25 people, that's 50 liters of water a day and 350 liters of water a week. Now, seeing that water is one of the most valuable resources in the game, that's a lot of water. Now, as for the bottle caps that the armed guards get paid, I estimate that each armed guard makes around 25 bottle caps a week. How did I come up with this estimate? Well, I used what you get paid for some of the first jobs in the game as a reference, then I subtracted a little bit for the food and water. So combined, all the armed guards in the compound were making around 325 caps a week. That's the equivalent of over $16,000 in our money today. Not bad for a week's paycheck. Now, many fans of the game will say that the people at Covenant and in the compound aren't bad. They're just trying to fight the Institute the best way they know how. But from what I can see, they're nothing more than raiders. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe. I plan on making many more Fallout videos. But until next time, I'm Chuck, this is Average Arcader, and I'll see you next time.